So, as we get started, we're going to do a little bit of storytelling. And I want to thank you both in advance for your willingness to share some of your journey, some of your journey in the gray. But also in advance, just let anybody here know that if while we're talking about this, it surfaces something inside of you, that's okay. And if you need to talk to somebody afterwards, please feel free to stay by. We have a whole chaplain team sitting here in the front. We'll be ready to connect with you. But we can understand how some of what we'll share today could be quite impactful for some of the people here. So let's just do some quick introductions. This is Alyssa. Alyssa, why are you at Andrews University, or what are you studying here?
Pre-professional psychology.
Okay, great. And Godwin, what do you?
Oh, I'm just working on my MDiv.
Just working on your MDiv. Just a seminarian, following the Lord's call. Okay,
That's
good for
right.
you. Glad that you're here. So, real quick question. We'll dive right in. Godwin, you had a significant disruption happen in your life. Tell us real quick, what was it that interrupted the natural course of your life?
Well, I think, to be honest, my 2020 started off early. And I had a serious car accident on 2019 in December 22nd. I was driving home from a youth lock-in, and we've been there all night. We're having a lot of fun, and it was time to go, and I had to get home. And as I was driving home, I fell asleep on the wheel, and I went into oncoming traffic, hit a car, flipped over, and I came to with the car flipped over. And when I did, I was like, shoot, man, you know? And I unbuckled myself. I fell to the roof of the car, and I kind of bear crawled out of the driver's side window. And when I looked to the right, I noticed there was an aggressive fire that was on the engine. And so I knew I had to get away from it. But with so much adrenaline and so little strength and energy, I only got to about the trunk area of the car. And when I did, I thought this was it for me. I just flipped over on my back, and I was ready to die. And, I looked up to God. I talked to him, and I was okay. I was ready. I was good. The only thing I was upset about is I wasn't going to have an open casket. And when that happened, I was ready. I was just talking to God, and this random guy came and pulled me out from that area, and I was in pain. I had broken my hip and dislocated it, so they had to reconstruct it and everything. And it was a really tough recovery process. And they finally cleared me the April of next year in 2020 to actually drive and walk. And it was a frustrating journey because I had to use a walker. And as a 20-year-old, it gets frustrating having to explain to people why you need a walker. So that's just a little bit of the overview.
Wow, that is a lot. Like you said, your 2020 got started early.
Yeah.
Alyssa, you've experienced some significant losses in your life in the last couple of years. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I've lost about 11 people in my life in the last almost 3 years. I lost my mom in 2018, and then that following year in 2019, I lost my grandfather, and then 2020, I lost my sister, and then in 2020 as well, in October, I lost my father. So I'm 23 years old, and I have buried both of my parents and a sibling.
Yeah. You both have been through some really difficult and challenging moments. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry, that we live in a world like this, where there is darkness, where there is gray, and, damn the devil, right? Damn the devil for putting us in these kinds of situations, but these things happen. Godwin, in either in the accident or in the journey that followed, what questions were you asking about God or to God?
To be real, even as a pastor, I felt like God abandoned me. This wasn't supposed to happen to me, I'm one of the good ones, Lord, Why is this happening to me? And it was tough because in that process, I honestly felt helpless. And for me, I like to be in control of my situation. And I was totally out of control of my situation. I couldn't drive anywhere. I had to depend and rely on people. And I felt like I was a kid again, and I hated it. It was really frustrating. And yeah.
So you felt like God pretty much abandoned you, and now you're depending on everyone else to do stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I just felt like God wasn't there.
Wasn't there.
This wasn't supposed to happen. Yeah.
And Alyssa, what kinds of questions were you asking about God or even to God during this last 3 years since 2018?
I think I was asking the same questions, like why me? I think one of my biggest questions was that I always asked God was like, well, I grew up in the foster care system, and so I already knew what it felt like to like not have parents, and so then to like be adopted and then to have them taken away from me so soon in life, I felt like, okay, I wasn't meant to have parents, I guess. I would probably say that, and then like for me, like especially after like my dad died, because also my biological parents also passed away as well. So they've passed away, and then now my adopted parents have passed away. And I'm just like, I remember thinking like, is this like the God that I'm supposed to be like working my whole way to like go see in heaven? Like, is this the same God that like we're praising all the time? Because this has not been good for me at all. Like, I'm like, I do my devotions, I got baptized, like I did Pathfinders, I go to church on Sabbath, and it's like, is this the same God everyone's talking about that's so good and loving? Because I don't feel it.
Man, I can imagine that there's moments where we've echoed those kind of sentiments, right? Is this the God? Can this be true? Can this God that we say is love, can this be true with all of this crazy nonsense, this loss, these disruptions that are happening? And I don't know about you guys, but in those moments, especially when I was younger, I kind of wondered if just asking that question was irreverent, right? Just having that feeling, right? Like, am I pagan now? I remember in my teens, my mom was suffering from clinical depression. She was over-medicated by what the doctors prescribed to her. And literally, it was myself at 14 or 15, my brother at 13, and my stepdad taking care of her and my grandmother who had Alzheimer's. I was the youth director for the AY for our church. And I remember standing outside on the deck with my friend and saying, yeah, I don't know if I believe in God right now. Like, how can this be? Then I read the Psalms, and I'm like, I guess David may have felt this way. David felt this way too sometimes. And I think it's probably one of the things we can walk away with, guys, is we have these questions and these feelings, and these dark moments really press us, don't they? They really press us to wonder, where is this loving God? Through all of that time, guys, and maybe even right now, how did you, or did you, at any point in time, experience God's love? So you have all these questions, you're processing everything that's happening, you're reevaluating, your support systems because they have changed now. How were you experiencing God's love, or maybe not even experiencing God's love and wish that you had? Alyssa, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, the fact that I'm even here this semester, I remember thinking like I wasn't going to come back because I just simply could not afford it until my financial advisor called me and said that all of my finances were clear, even like my books and my food and my housing. So I don't know what God did, but he did it. So
Hey, let's give God a hand. Amen. So he took care of your needs. He cleared the way, and you're saying,
I know, and I remember thinking like, because every single suicide attempt I ever tried failed, and I was like, why are you doing this to me? And this must be it.
yeah. How about you, Godwin? How have you felt or not experienced God's love?
I'm going to be honest with you. It took me some reflection to actually see it. because I think what I went through, I was so stuck in the details that I forgot what God is doing if I zoomed out. And when I zoomed out, I started noticing that God put me in the right people's hands at the right time. And he also allowed me to hear the right things to keep me going. One thing I could really think about is just the ability to have recovered the way I did. The doctors didn't expect it at all. They actually were trying to figure out how I could still get more rest, but my body was really after it. And so I just got to thank God for that, because just being able to walk and drive is just such an underrated blessing. And so just, being able to recover so fast, and not only that, but they were expecting me to catch arthritis. And I'm like, yo, I'm 26, bruh. You know what I'm saying? I can't catch arthritis, but God was gracious, and I'm in good health. And I could finally do what I used to do, so it feels great.
That's good. That's good. To know that God put people in your life to give you encouragement, to say what you needed to hear, to press you along. One of the things that I've found with pain and with hurt is that it's really loud. When I have had some serious pain and hurt, it's like a noise that makes it hard to hear someone trying to bless me. That makes it hard to hear the Bible promises that God has spoken to me. Alyssa, have you experienced a loud pain in all of this? Or what have you found has blocked some of the encouragements that God was trying to put in front of you?
Maybe when each time someone has passed away, I tend to go through this I'm not getting out of bed thing. And so you can come to my door and you can bring me food, bring me something, and I'm not going to answer the door, or I'm not going to try. And because I just was so stuck in my life sucks, which it did.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that it didn't, but I would probably just say honestly just maybe depression, or even anxiety. I'm even right now, I'm very anxious. I'm always on edge, when someone calls me you got bad news for me. So I would probably say just my own thoughts and stuff like that.
And I think it's important to note that when we're going through some of this gray stuff, that our bodies, our spirit, our sense of being is compromised because of the pain and because of the disruption or because of the loss. And that it's important that we listen to that, right? That we understand it. And what I appreciate about what you're saying right now, Alyssa, is that you have developed a sense of okay, when I experience loss or pain, this is how I can respond. And having that awareness, I think, is a tool to help us to continue to go forward, right? To know that, okay, I'm just processing things. I'm trying to move things along. I'm trying to, and these feelings are real, but they aren't all of my reality, right? They aren't all of my reality. Can you think of a moment when someone encouraged you during this time? And it was just the right thing at the right time. They said something or they showed up in some way. What was it that kind of broke through to help you to hear or to see okay, this is kind of God loving me in this moment? Godwin?
I remember actually, and this was kind of a really special moment for me. I remember I had, just after I had gotten into the accident, a couple months, maybe it was a couple months. I was on my walker, just hobbling along in church. And one of my kids who I was doing Bible study with, her name is Sydney. She's such a sweetheart. She came up to me with a scrunched up face, and she was like, "Pastor?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she's like, "Next time you get in a car accident and you don't tell me, I'm going to be real mad at you." And it made me smile because I sometimes in ministry you forget, you ask yourself, are you making a difference? Are you connecting? And her real, genuine care for me was one of the sweetest things I saw, even though she was, upset with me for not telling her, But that was, I think, a really beautiful moment to just know, you know what? You're valued. You're still important. You may not feel well inside, but on the outside, people still want to love on you. So, yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Alyssa?
Well, I think for me, there's like this loss of like identity when I lost my dad, my last living parent. And so I kind of felt like I don't really belong to anyone. I mean, yeah, I have siblings, but like they're married and like they have kids and they go to their own houses and stuff like that. And oh my gosh. And then so I would probably say over Christmas break was really rough for me. But there's been this family in my life who's been good family friends of ours, and they invited us over for Christmas. And they got me a gift, and I opened it, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know, something small. It was a stocking, and it had my name on it, and it matched their family's stocking. And they put it up on the chimney with them. They're like, you're like one of us now. And it made me feel so good because it's like, I was like, I don't know. There's something about like being part of like a family that makes you feel so good. I mean, I still have family, but it was like I felt like I belong because I grew up very religious, and so like my parents like were always praying for us, and so like when my dad died, I was like, oh man, like no one's praying over me. So I don't really tend to like go anywhere anymore because I'm like I don't feel prayed over, and so now I kind of do that. I have these other people. So God really does give you people in your life, like right when you need them.
Man, I'm just moved by what you just said. It's pretty heavy. When I don't know what it's like to miss knowing that someone's praying over you, right? And I'm glad that God put this family in your life, Alyssa, so you can know that they are praying over you. My mom prays over me, but I think my mom's kind of crazy sometimes. So what she wants and what I want are always the same thing. But she loves me and she's watching over me. And God has put people in our lives to watch over us. To kind of wrap up, I want to share a quick story about, so several years ago I went through a divorce, and what people don't know about divorce is that it's a death. Your marriage has died, and it really feels like a limb is missing. You wake up, and you're like, something used to be here, and it's not here anymore. And I was pretty private about my journey until I decided to tell the whole world by preaching about it here on Sabbath morning. And I remember the next Sabbath, I went downstairs during Sabbath school, and there was a huddle of like a dozen 65-plus-year-old women. And they said, and some of them had been widowers already, and they said, I bet you could use a hug. And I said, yes, I can use a hug. And they're like, well, we're old, so nobody's going to think anything bad if we give you a hug. I was like, I'm game. Give me all the hugs you want. And every Sabbath for like the next year, all these old women were loving on me, and I loved it. They just hugged me. They let me know that I was being thought of and I was being cared for. And it's exactly what I needed. Isaiah 41:13 has this really powerful verse. I'm going to go ahead and read it for you. Isaiah 41:13. Here's something to remember when we are in the middle of some really dark, gray stuff, and here's what God intends and tries to do. And I want you to remember this because you can't imagine, perhaps some of you can't imagine a moment in the future where you're going to go through something difficult and gray, but it'll surprise you. And some of you are going through some stuff right now. And here's what I want you to know and hold on to in this very difficult moment. How do we love in the gray? Well, one of the ways that we love in the gray, in the dark, is to create space for God to love us. And sometimes that's with a family that's going to hang a stocking and tell us that, yeah, you're one of us now. Or a little girl that says, hey, you better keep me up. Give me the 411 the next time this thing happens. Or maybe it's a bunch of old women giving you a hug when you need it. But God's going to show up. This speaks to his intention. Isaiah 41:13, it says this, for I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will be with you. Just this picture that God sees me walking alone, and what he wants is he wants to come beside me and hold my hand through it. That's what God desires to do in our life. And in the gray moments, he's trying to find that right spot, that right moment when you will have your hand open to allow him to take a hold of it and to assure you, you're not alone. I am with you. Thank you, Godwin and Alyssa, for sharing your story. Yeah, let's give him a hand. Next Thursday, we're going to continue inside of this question. We're going to be looking at this thing called the Theodicy of Love. How do we understand God in the midst of all this suffering? We're going to have one of our professors come, and I really hope that you come ready with some questions about what it means to experience God's love in these difficult moments, because we're going to give you opportunity to share these questions. So between now and then, I challenge you to do two things. One, think of a question that you might have about this so that we can answer it next week. And then two, listen to how God may want to use you to be the manifestation of him holding the hand of someone in your life who really needs to know they're not alone right now. That's the powerful thing, is that God uses human agents to express his love and to be the presence of God in other people's lives. Make yourself available to that. Let's have a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the testimony over and over and over again about how you show up in these difficult moments. Lord, help us to keep our eyes open, keep our hands open, so in the moment that you call on us to hold the hand of another, we will listen. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.